Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, where we're going to be talking about how AI-powered supply chains are redefining retail agility. We will be starting in just a moment, so thank you for joining and settle in. We're excited. We are excited to have some roundtable discussions as well as some demonstrations and recap today. With that said, I think we might go ahead and get started. All right. So today we are going to be doing a roundtable, starting by doing a roundtable discussion of some of the 2026 retail trends and how technology plays within that context. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about some of Argonaut's most recent agents, the different capabilities that we've been building, and specifically focusing on our retail margin analyst capability. And then we're going to be talking about understanding where you are in your own AI journey and how Argonaut can potentially help you progress down that road. Today, we've got some very esteemed speakers with us today. I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. My name is Corey Bakhtiari. I'm the Vice President of Innovation and Strategy. So one of my areas of expertise and working is in AI, and excited that we're going to have some of our retail experts here as well. And Tyler, why don't you and then Christian, introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'm Tyler Barron, the Senior Director of Client Engagement. I'm specifically focused in the retail and commerce industry for Argonaut. So looking forward to a good discussion today.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Christian Weld. I'm a Senior Client Executive. My whole role here is to help clients with their journey on utilizing and adopting their AI roadmap. Excited to be here.
Great. Thank you. All right. Now we're going to talk about some retail trends. We've got 4 trends. We're going to go ahead and start with kind of a definition, and we're going to open up the conversation and have some pointed questions. So first one is we're going to be talking about agentic AI commerce. So in the last year, agentic AI has proliferated both in terms of concept and in terms of a lot of hype, right? And basically, there's just been this conflation of AI and automation into now this construct of agentic. And one of the big themes that we are seeing for 2026 is that AI capabilities are no longer just suggestive in nature. Now they're going to be executed activities as well. For example, buying items for users. And you're going to be seeing a lot of brands, major brands and smaller brands that are going to be introducing technology that can automatically search for options, compare them, and even potentially complete payments all on their own. So now that we kind of got an understanding of what that looks like, I've got a question I'm going to ask you, Tyler, first.
Sure.
So when you look at a shopping journey, what are some areas in that journey where AI agents can help customers today without necessarily freaking them out or without necessarily seeming creepy?
Right. We certainly don't want to freak them out. A couple key principles here is the way I see it is transparency and really humanity, right? To some things that we can do to avoid freaking them out is, clearly state what data it uses, little snippets of lines saying like based on your recent searches, to kind of give them an idea of how we came up with this reasoning or recommendation. We can offer opt-ins and opt-outs. But I think at the end of the day of maintaining a helpful human-like tone without sort of sounding invasive or overly like, I know everything about you and I know exactly what you want. A couple examples are sort of like natural language search. Instead of searching for, blue sneakers, it's like, show me eco-friendly sneakers under $100. those are some very easy wins, right? That we can make it feel a little bit more human, right? Feature comparisons, side by side product comparisons like battery life versus price, maybe some metrics. Um, Another example, sort of easy return guidance, walking through the customer, maybe guiding them to a help article, tell us why you didn't like it, and maybe try to guide them in a different direction. But at the end of the day, what our customers expect and our brands expect is an informed, personal, and frictionless journey. So that's sort of where I think of it our customers expect to know that the brand knows a little bit about you, and sort of finding that balance to really make them feel at home.
Yeah. I like that transparency note, especially if as things come up, there's some clarity in terms of like where that context is coming from. That could be very helpful also to help build some trust as well.
Exactly.
Christian, I know you've got some thoughts on
No,
this as
definitely,
well.
and it's a unpopular opinion, but I think that there's obviously the concern around privacy, but at the same time, consumers are expecting that personalization, right? When I open up my shopping application, I'm expecting it to understand my previous buys, help me out with my Christmas list. I mean, I was telling the group earlier, during holiday seasons, I'll even go in and put things in there that I want it to give me recommendations on later. I expect that personalized approach. And there's often ways that you can do that through area or do that through specific consumer trends. But I think to hit Tyler's point head on, I want to make sure that my privacy isn't being invaded, but I do want it to act. So it's this fine line where AI can help manage that data, but also give your consumers that layer of confidence that it's being used in a meaningful and respectful way.
Sounds like you are leaning more towards the side of interest and convenience, right?
Absolutely.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
willing to maybe sacrifice, maybe sacrifice is not the right word, but you're understanding the trade-offs associated with some of these activities,
100%.
especially. Awesome.
100%, right? The old days of batteries not included, and I got to get back in the car to go buy my batteries. I don't want to do that, right? I'd love for it to say, hey, by the way, recommend you buy the batteries now, so you don't have to deal with that. That's amazing. That's been a great change.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Now, okay, we talked a little bit about some of the use of agentic AI, but oftentimes we need to probably take a step back and we need to like try to understand what needs to be in place, right? And oftentimes when we talk about what's AI or agentic readiness looks like, it devolves pretty quickly into a technical conversation, right? But oftentimes there's some overlooked parts of readiness from an AI or an agentic AI perspective as well. So Tyler, back to you. What are some things that you think of that need to be in place, technical or otherwise, for a retailer before agentic AI can be deployed?
Sure. Yeah, I do see two sides of the coin of certainly data and governance, risk compliance foundations, all that is incredibly important and gauging your organization's readiness. For example, just like clean product data, pricing, inventory accuracy, these all are the basics that the agents are going to build upon. So having that foundation in place and ready to scale in the AI world, like that is critical. Um, Making sure that governance and risk compliance guardrails are in place, both policies and processes. Those are all really important. Now, if you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to start here, we're certainly happy to help you with that and have a conversation and guide you through it. Corey will go through a little bit of that later. But I think the often overlooked piece of it is an honest assessment of your customer journey and your current day operations. Really gathering an outsider's perspective, talking to your frontline workers, and to really validate where those real challenges are, that to ensure that when you go down this path, you're going to see a huge return on it, right? It's not, no offense to anybody in IT, right? But this shouldn't be just an IT driven initiative or just a business. We need to gather all of the feedback and have an honest assessment of where the operations and the customer journey is, so that we know that when we endeavor in this in this future, we're really making huge strides and delivering maximum value.
Yeah. Nothing like a solution in search of a problem, right? Um,
Right, exactly.
and and oftentimes we think AI first, right? Before we take a
Right.
step back and try to get a perspective on where is it going to drive the most value. No,
Mhm.
that's that's great. Thank you, Tyler. Um, our next theme here on trend is on the predictive side. And we touched a little bit on predictive, but predictive intent engines typically use AI to preempt customer intent, right? So relying on context like maybe history, purchasing history, or even other contexts like weather or life events. So maybe going back to you, Tyler, can you provide maybe some examples of what a predictive intent engine does in retail terms? Have you got any examples, maybe even from your
Sure, sure.
personal experience?
Yeah, so ultimately its intent is to try to think up of what that shopper or customer is likely to need next from you, right? And so we can certainly use, and Corey, you touched on this a little bit of, behavior, seasonality, region. I think an interesting use case here is like if you are a sporting goods store, right? Having awareness of maybe what events or tournaments or competitions are in the area, right? That may drive demand, or that it's a kayak race happening in your town. Like, maybe that's a predictive intent that maybe we need to move some of this to the front of the store or prioritize this on the site, something like that. Um, Another example is sort of, let's say that I buy something on a site on a Monday and I return to that site on a Wednesday. What could I possibly be needing 2 days later, right? I'm probably wondering where my product is. Or maybe it was so good that I want to buy more. So those are just two actions, right? That maybe from a design or an AI agent perspective of surfacing that so that those options are not buried into profile, history, order, status, delivery, sort of surfacing that up, again, to try to predict what that customer may need.
Mm.
I'll go into one short story here. Is that I've been going to this furniture store for maybe six or 7 years, bought a lot of stuff from them. And I walked in recently, and the agent craftfully said, have you ever been to our store? Can I look you up? I gave them my name and information. And for what felt like 10 minutes, it was probably only like two, but that that agent was going through all of my order history. She was looking up what we bought, how recently we came in, what our style is, and we're just standing there like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? I'm a nerd, so I like peeked around to see what she was doing. But she had such good intent of wanting to know who we were, and she was trying to do the predictive intent, right? So if we can elevate that experience, right, and surface up that information quickly, effectively, and take a predictive approach of, yeah, they really like the walnut pieces. They've got several sets. Maybe that line or that styling is something that they may be interested in. And that makes that in-store experience just kind of take it to the next level. So
Yeah.
that's
So, thank you. And who doesn't like walnut? I mean, I like walnut as well. Now, actually, Christian, this next one's for you. So, kind of similar to the first question we talked about today. Curious what your thoughts are around when predictions get really good, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's hypothesize a little bit here, right? Where it is almost, prescient, right? In terms of like what
Yeah.
what can be expected from you as an individual. Where do you draw the line? Do you draw the line between helpful anticipation and perhaps manipulating the customer?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I think of the in-store experience, what I'm looking for as a consumer is I'm looking for a consultant, not a salesman, right? And if I go into a store, I'll spend $2,000 if that person's with me, understands my style, and can help guide me on my purchasing process, rather than going back and checking out inventory and constantly leaving to address that back of house problems. But from the initial start, what am I looking for is there is constant trends. right? And they're the hardest thing to predict. Is how do I predict the trend, or how do I enable a trend? And I recently was purchasing shoes, and this shoe company did a limited release on this specific shoe, and I was very excited. I was first in order, but they sold out very fast. What they realized is there was so much more demand than they could actually analyze based on the data. And in 3 months, they decided, let's re-release the shoe. But by that time, the hype was gone. So in my eyes, they lost out on a large amount of supply that they could have been that they could have taken advantage of if they had determined those trend analysis from their data prior.
Hmm.
So there's a lot. I know I went a little bit onto the supply chain, but for me, that helps out. There's nothing worse than going to buy something online and it's sold out or it's not in my size. And by the time that gets restocked, I'm on to the next, right?
Fair. No, I know, right? If you're gonna go in person, and I know that more people are wanting to go in person to brick and mortar storefronts, right? Especially post COVID. And yeah, that can be frustrating, especially if you feel like you expect and you hear that it is going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing to add there is that certainly, like, I feel like I'm a predictable person, right? I like wearing dark clothes, right? But will that always be me, right? And so I think that certainly we could be predictive, but we don't want to take it overboard, right? We still want to, as a brand, introduce new ideas because us as humans, we evolve, our tastes change, our styles change. And so prediction can only get so good. They're not going to know what's going on up here. But
Mm.
but I think there's a fine balance between how good that prediction gets to
Yeah.
finding
And you don't
that
want to put
balance.
that in a box, right? I mean, I think the example that we kind of use is that if an app somehow is aware that you may not be having a great day and it's prompting you, it's trying to sell you something based on that emotion, right? Like, oh, here's some pizza, or you want some cookies, right? That may not be the best feeling experience necessarily here there. It might feel a little bit manipulative in essence.
That
That's
pizza app that hits you on a Friday that says, having a rough day, I'm like, did they know, did they see my calendar? Are they reading my chats? Or,
Yeah.
it's like, feels a little weird.
absolutely. All right, next trend, smart store automation. So concept is retail robots, right? Robots are advancing from trials and pilots in like flagship stores to full autonomy at scale. And they're performing tasks like inventory, shelf checks, cleaning, fulfillment activities, and really at the end of the day, allowing stores to operate more efficiently or with fewer staff, enabling employees to focus on customers. So question for the two of you. Um, what changes do you see in the operating model or in the responsibilities of individual staff when automation handles those more routine store tasks?
Right. So I think if we think of change and we also think of opportunity, right? Because I think of those our retail staff of empowering them to have a more value added experience with our customers instead of checking, doing a stock check, where a robot could certainly do that. Now they can be helping somebody find a product or introducing them to something else or asking them how their day is. I mean, that's the easy stuff, right? If they're running around doing 20 different things. So I think each brand and each industry within retail is different. But if we think about how we can empower those individuals to do more and to help our customers rather than doing the nitty gritty work. Because I think at the end of the day, we all want, I think Christian, you said it perfectly, as a consultant and not a salesperson, right? We sometimes need a little help, and we want that guided journey, um, in that
Yeah.
in-store.
But I think going back to that, the core is I don't want someone to have to constantly go back and say, let me check that inventory in the back. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Why? Because that gives me a reason to get out of there, right? Honestly,
Yeah.
there or change my opinion. A lot of this is by emotion, right? By feel. So I want to stay connected with that engagement, and I also want to leave the store happy. And the more I'm engaged in that conversation, in that dialogue, and
Mm.
without interruptions, the more I'm going to stay connected to that emotional buying habit.
So,
Um,
so what I'm hearing here is, okay, I'm assuming that we are moving more towards autonomous, self-service kind of stores, right? Where is therefore the role of that human presence take a little bit more, in terms of, is that the differentiator? And how does that play out, do you think? Is
yeah.
there any dependencies on those things?
So I'll take a stab at that first. One thing that I do want to say in regard to that also is there are certain buying habits that I have or products that I purchase that I expect to be autonomous now, right? Nobody likes standing in line waiting for 30 people for one item, right? I expect to have that self-service checkout. I expect to have that self-service maybe pre-order purchase. There's a lot of things that I do where I can shop ahead, right? Or I can prep my order so that I'm spending time um, looking at what's more important, right? Maybe adding on to my purchase. So there are areas that I almost expect that automation in a store. And when I look at an organization and they don't have that form of automation, or even going back to, let's say that I purchased something and maybe I got the wrong size. I expect some form of fast automation. I joke that the days of calling customer service and having, hey, click one for this, two for that, and now I can speak to an IVR agent that essentially can make my changes quickly, give me the right information almost faster than a human. That's an expectation. What does that do from an organization? That allows me to drop my call volume from a customer service space by 25-30%. So it's saving me costs, but it's also connecting me closer to my customer and allowing them to self-service a lot faster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tyler,
and
any-
I think there's also a component of like your brand identity, right? Because every brand
Yeah.
and every sort of experience may be different, right? Like from the two extremes of the grabbing a snack and a bottle of water at an airport versus buying a luxury watch. It's not a one size fits all. So
Totally.
so there are certain, where I don't want to talk to somebody. I just need to get my stuff and get out of there. But even still, and I love a story, but at the airport, I just last week I grabbed a bottle of water and a snack at I think it was Hudson News. I checked out, and right behind me was the person monitoring the 5 terminals, and she had a bag and said, "Have a great flight." Like,
Yeah.
what a surprise. Like, I don't want to talk to anybody, but what a generous like surprise that just made me walk out of there with a smile. So again, it's a creative approach, and it's not a one size fits all. Because even in an industry, you may find that some parts of your customers want that high touch and some don't. So it's a unique challenge, but
and it could depend on the actual part of the process or of the journey, right? It
right.
could that could vary as well. And one thing, obviously, while we talk a lot about the customer journey, from an operational standpoint, the thing that actually enables all these things to happen in the first place, right? Like the automated fulfillment and tracking of where there might be shortage of inventory,
Right.
huge benefits there. And on the operational side of things, let's talk a little bit about supply chain, right? And this is going to get us into also our agent conversation as well. But retailers are looking to track inventory, orders, disruptions across their supply chain in as near real time as possible. AI tools are going to be able to help identify risks or disruptions to that supply chain early and suggest actions. So, question for you both. All right, simple question, simple answer, hopefully. If you could improve one signal tomorrow, let's say, or you could have your clients or your retailers improve one signal to reduce stockouts and also reduce promise date misses, would it be for inventory accuracy, one, supplier ETAs, two, or demand sensing, and a little why?
Boy, that's a tough one, to be honest. But and this may not be the glossy answer here, but I'm going to go with inventory accuracy. So much of all of these tools and agents, they all depend on that foundation of having accurate inventory. So if we don't have accurate inventory, that's what I want to fix so that probably the tools that you likely already have in place can behave better, and then we can build upon that. I mean, it's not only just for the technology to operate as we expect, but it also goes back to the customer. I don't know how many times I've been on one of the big box sites and I've seen that this product is available at that store that's about 20 minutes further, and I made that drive and it's not there. When they said they had two or three. So it's not just about getting all the technology to work. It's about, customer expectations of if you say you have it, you better darn have it. So that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah, foundational. Got you.
I don't know if I can add a fourth option, but I expect that, let's say that there is a stock out, let's say they don't hit that mark. Well, Tyler, let's say it's something that I really need the next day or the day after. How fast can that organization get that product to me? So not just accuracy, but if they can achieve that accuracy, when can they, right? When can I go back to get that? If it's a week later, well, guess what? My ski trip's passed, right? But if it's the day after, absolutely. And that builds trust. I now have trust with that brand. I now have trust, and I'm going to go to that place other than competitors 9 times out of 10 because I can trust it'll be there when I need it.
Great. Thank you. Awesome. So moving on, and in the same vein as our conversation on the supply chain side of things, we're going to talk about a specific agent. But before we talk about that specific agent, I wanted to give you an idea about the way Argonaut approaches this. So oftentimes we get clients who are interested in wanting to deploy an agent, right? And one of the things that we have been working on is building pre-packaged agents. So kickstarting with some existing Argonaut agents, of which you will see one today. Or if you're more interested in doing a more bespoke approach, we can also build a tailored agent. So all of these agents are underlined by being built on top of best responsible AI practices and are developed to always be driving value, as one of our earlier talking points discussed. So we're going to hop into a demonstration of one of our margin agents. And I'm going to go ahead.
Introducing the Smart Margin Analyst Agent, an AI-powered solution designed to help organizations to stay ahead of unexpected supply chain disruptions.
I work at a wholesale retail company based in the Pacific Northwest. We're preparing for an in-person pop-up event scheduled for January 20th. It's an important event, and everything needs to arrive on time. I'm closely tracking incoming products and purchase orders, making sure inventory is ready well before the event. Everything seems to be on track. And then, suddenly, a tariff update is announced. Without any warning. At that moment, everything changes. Now, I'm concerned. Will the products arrive in time? And how will this impact costs and margins?
That is where the Smart Margin Analyst Agent comes in. The agent continuously monitors global tariff changes and cost updates in the background, ensuring no critical updates are missed. When a sudden tariff update is announced, the agent immediately detects the change and sends a critical tariff change alert on email. The email clearly outlines the affected countries, the previous and updated tariff rates, and the overall cost impact on vendors, retail items, and active purchase orders. This enables procurement and finance teams to quickly assess the risk and take informed actions on sourcing decisions before disruptions impact operations or margins.
But the disruption doesn't stop there. Because of the tariff increase, a key vendor informs me that an existing purchase order, originally planned to ship by ocean, will now be delayed due to port delay. This vendor supplies a critical component of our product kit. If the delay is long enough, I may not have the product ready for the in-person pop-up event. Now the pressure is real. This delay puts delivery timelines at risk, challenges in my commitments, and threatens profit margins.
No worries. With the Smart Margin Analyst Agent, procurement and finance teams can quickly evaluate the impact through a natural, conversational experience. Instead of running manual reports or complex cost analysis, you can simply ask, there's a delay with ocean shipping. What's the new margin if we ship the retail kit by air? The agent performs a deep analysis using Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, evaluating updated freight costs, landed costs, tariffs, and pricing components. It then presents a clear margin impact, showing the previous margin with ocean shipping and the new margin if the order is shipped by air. Based on this analysis, the agent provides a recommendation to the procurement officer, highlighting whether expediting by air is viable or if further cost or pricing adjustments are needed.
That's interesting.
Further, you can ask what's the air delivery date and cost. The agent returns the air freight analysis. The delivery date is January 12th, 2026. The total air freight cost is $210. Compared to ocean shipping, air delivery arrives 17 days earlier, improving the delivery date from January 29th to January 12th. Next, you can ask what's the new sales price if received by air. The agent then evaluates the new sales price. If the order is received by air, presents clear pricing options, and provides actionable recommendations based on margin impact.
Perfect. This is wonderful.
Additionally, I can take action on the suggested new sales price directly within the Smart Margin Analyst agent, which automatically updates in Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. The previous sales price was set for ocean freight. Based on the margin impact analysis provided by the agent, I'll ask the agent to update the sales price accordingly. Update the sales price of sales order for retail kit as per the new price analysis. The agent successfully updated the sales order based on the revised margin analysis. The new price is applied to the sales order in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, ensuring margins are protected for air shipment. With the updated pricing in place, the order now reflects the correct cost structure and margin expectations. The sales order is ready to move forward, aligned with the new delivery method and business goals.
This is exactly what I needed. With the Smart Margin Analyst agent, my retail business can stay ahead, gaining instant visibility, clear margin impact, and actionable recommendations right when decisions matter the most.
Introducing the Smart.
All right. Well, as we walked through in that recorded demonstration, we experienced actually a couple different disruptions, right? One of them was a tariff and one of them was a port delay. And with the agentic capability, both in terms of automating notifications, providing a conversational interaction component, and then executing based on that conversational interaction component, in addition to the reasoning, the very deep reasoning, you're able to get a lot more efficient to adapt to these different types of disruptions that we're facing in a lot of places. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about how you can progress in your AI journey. And I'm just going to hand this over to Christian to speak to.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone is in a different area of their journey, right? Some organizations are starting at the forefront of allowing their employees to start to utilize that original production ready AI, that AI that helps with emails, et cetera, right? But then there's some organizations who are looking for that more agentic approach as we start to adopt those future states. So one thing that we do is we help you identify where you are on your journey, and then we have a very structured path to helping move you from informed to reform to transform to ultimately performing, while looking at those matrix and looking at the actual KPIs you're achieving. What I say a lot is that if you replace something with time, if you say, hey, I've protected this time, I've taken 2 hours a week out of this item. Well, if you don't do anything with that time, the net is zero. It's $0. So how do we look at the KPIs in a specific way? We help guide you through that path.
Great, thank you. And then when we look at the AI transformation, we kind of see this in two ways. So one of them is a technology journey, and the other one is the change management and adoption journey, right? Like any large digital transformation projects, what ends up making or breaking it is whether or not people are using it effectively and getting value out of it. And depending on where you are in a AI journey, right, we will start in different locations. But typically we see that we start by focusing on embedding AI within existing workflows. And oftentimes that takes the form of deploying accessible AI. Now, these are your typical out-of-box SaaS-based solutions. So these could be Copilot. This could be a Dynamics Copilot, perhaps, right? And this way, what we're able to do is develop some AI literacy, right? Along with a strong vision and transparency about the intent of the purpose, right, of why an organization is deploying AI, coupled with an investment to train and upskill those same individual employees, you're going to end up with a much better life cycle and return on AI because it's going to drive initial adoption. And this is one of those things where we would start with kind of AI shadowing typically people and then beginning to assist. Now, what's going to happen oftentimes is that you may hit walls, right? You're going to want to do things that maybe these AI can't, right? Like think about wanting to now bring in other data sources, right? Things that maybe doesn't have that maybe the out of the box doesn't have an AI for, or is in a whole different system itself. That's where we're going to start building out your more configured and integrated agents and start building more customizations. Now, of course, this presents additional requirements, right? Now you're going to have to start taking a better look at governance, risk, and compliance because now that's going to be more on you or more on the organization or more on Argonaut to help with developing, right? Making sure that there is some solidity there versus something that is more of a feature turn on, like in the first section, right? And then this is where we're going to be focusing on value, right? Now that we're going to be investing a little bit more time and build, we want to make sure that we've got business cases and our user experience focused. And this is where we're going to start to see the progression from assistive to more of an augment function, right? Really helping to scale an individual. And then we're going to start looking at a whole agentic solution. Right now, we're going to be looking at domain or persona-based capabilities, and there's going to be orchestration involved, right? You're going to have more monitoring and governance requirements. And you're going to have to start looking at how this fits within the context of a whole redesign or transformation of your business process. And these are all things that we would be helping you with as we go through this AI journey together. And then if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how we do this, Christian, why don't you tell us a little bit about our AI envisioning workshop?
Yeah, this is one of the best activities I've seen to date and participated in when it comes to AI use case. The reality is, and I'll just be honest here, a lot of those more orchestrated agentic processes, that's where a lot of organizations are seeing that return on investment. But the reality is some of them are risky or expensive. And there's a fine line of tracking where you're going to seek the most value for the lowest risk, and then taking those top use cases and chaining them. So what we do here is we spread a limit of education on what agentic AI looks like, how to build them, and then we explore, not just but through the processes, not just with IT, but with the whole organization, where that impact's really going to come from. And we focus less on productivity and more on what's actually going to bring value to the organization. So this is an amazing activity. I love doing this. If anyone is interested, please reach out. We will get some time on the calendar to fly out and have some fun.
Yeah. And one of the things that's really interesting about this work, this as well, is like we talk a lot about efficiency, but there does get to a point where there's diminishing returns on operational efficiency, right? So what are these other use cases that could help uplift revenue or margin as well? And those are some really interesting conversations that Christian and team have. All right, so we come to the end of our webinar today. You might be asking yourself, what's next? Well, we've got a few options for you. Feel free to reach out to an individual that you may know at Argonaut or this email, but a few examples are, would you like a live demonstration of this agent we showed a little earlier or another Argonaut agent? We'll be happy to do that and even do a little bit of a deep dive as well if you're interested in that. Would you like to learn more about this AI envisioning workshop and how that works and what some of the deliverables and some of our experiences? Or we have NRF coming up. If you're going to NRF, want to meet up, also let's reach out. Let's connect. We've got a group of folks going there that are going to be very, very intelligent. Myself, Tyler, amongst a few others, will be going there. We'd love to meet with you. We'd love to talk about retail trends, AI, go to a happy hour, what have you. Please do feel free to reach out. And with that, I want to really thank Tyler and Christian for participating in our webinar today. I'd like to thank you all for joining. Hopefully you found it useful. Please do let us know if you did or didn't. And we're looking forward to connecting again. So cheers, everyone. Be well.
Thanks, everyone.